Hey guys, Dr. Baker again. I thought I'd lend a little bit more insight into this sort of thought around beef production and how to make America healthy again. And some of the concerns, I said yesterday, look, we need more cows on the ground, not less. We need to eat more beef, not less. And how we get there is up for the debate. And so, one of the things, that's being said is, maybe we should just sort of ban feedlots and just kind of force everything down everything all pasture raised pathway as either a short-term or a long-term goal. And what I've said repeatedly, and first of all, as I said yesterday, I don't think the human outcomes are that much different. Yes, I understand there are studies showing that there's different nutrients in grass-finished versus grain-finished beef. I'm well familiar with Stefan von Vliet and Fred Provenza. I've interviewed both of those guys, and even they will say we have not done human intervention studies that show significant difference. It just doesn't exist yet. My clinical experience shows me that there doesn't seem to be a different outcome between people that eat grass finished versus people that eat grain finished. There are some obviously exceptions, individual variation. So you should have, choices, right? That's the thing about being an American. You get a choice, right? That's a nice thing. Now, I've had a lot of ranchers that follow me comment on the last video I did, and it's generally been very positive. Even a lot of the regenerative guys, I'll just, clip in some of these here. And so the reality is, if we were to draconianly just say no more feedlots as of the year 2030 or something like that, or 2028 or whatever, what that would do, it would devastate our beef supply. It just would. That's the reality of the matter. Now, think about it. A lot of the cattle has been bred, genetics and breeding over a period of years and years and sometimes decades. A lot of these cattlemen, they do that for a specific reason. It's tailored to their location. It's tailored to the food that they're going to consume to produce the best yield. We produce more beef now in the United States than we did 50 years ago with dramatically less cattle, something like 30, 40 million less cattle than we used to. And that has to do with nutrition strategies and genetic strategies and so on, and better health strategies, so on and so forth. And to say we're going to just erase all that and force everybody to finish out on grass would have devastating consequences in the short term. Now, there are cattle that would finish better on grass. Certainly, their genetics would allow for that. So you'd have to sort of change the genetic profile of many herds to do that. There are areas in the country, North Dakota, Montana, where the winters are very, very severe and it's really hard to keep animals on pasture year round. In fact, it's impossible. So you have to feed them. Often they have to go indoors just for their own comfort. You think about it. If you were out there and they were forcing you to stand outside in minus 20 degrees, for months at a time, you wouldn't like that. And neither do the animals. The animals seek shelter. They seek shade in the summertime. They seek warmth in the wintertime. Bison maybe are a little more hardy. They can handle the extreme temperatures of cold better than cattle can, particularly depending on the breed. And, that's a difference. The domestic cow is a very different animal. And again, I'm not a cattle rancher. I'm not an expert. I talk to a lot of these guys. I share their concerns, and so I think it's going to have to be something that's going to take time. Now, certainly you can incentivize people to do regenerative stuff. There's a lot of people living, Will Harris down in Georgia will be the first guy to tell you, I can do this because my land is perfect for it, right? And he says a lot of other guys can't do it as well as I can. Same thing with Joel Salatin, Shenandoah Valley out there. There are places in which this is ideal for, this is optimal for them. We should certainly incentivize those guys the best we can, but there's other places where it's going to be a lot harder. And a lot of these guys, and the other thing I said, if you don't get it right and you go to grass finish and you put out this gamey, chewy product, you're going to go out of business, right? And so you've got to allow a natural progression. This is going to, in my view, going to take probably a couple decades, quite honestly, to even get the country to, 25%, regenerative. Again, I don't know the exact numbers on that, but I suspect it's going to be something like that. Maybe some ranching experts can weigh in on this. But again, in my concern, the reason I said, because, I've heard Bobby Kennedy say we're going to ban feedlots, which I think is a real problem. That's one of the things, and I think that will dramatically reduce our net production of beef. Now, yes, you can pasture animals, and you can after a period of time, and especially if you multi-species graze, you can increase the net yield on that land by 4-fold, 5-fold, 6-fold, maybe 8-fold, depending on where you are. And certainly that's the case. But again, it's going to depend on a lot of variables. It's going to depend on a lot of time and a lot of incentives to do that. So it's not an overnight fix. This is something that we have to be very cautious with, because, as I said, more beef, eat more beef. More beef is better for us, and we need to figure out a way to increase our beef production. Right now, the cattle herd in the United States is the lowest it's been since the 1950s. That's largely due to drought conditions. Now, again, cattle can help with drought conditions. I don't know if many people realize it, but yes, when you pasture animals and you rotationally graze them and you increase the water carrying capacity, that actually changes the local weather so that it rains more. Alejandro Carrillo is doing that in Mexico, in the Chihuahuan Desert, so it's possible. But again, this is not something you can just mandate overnight. This is going to be something that's going to be policy directed over periods of time, long periods of time, quite frankly, probably over a period of several decades, to be honest. So anyway, those are my thoughts. And I think a lot of the ranching community will agree with me. And those people that aren't in there, I hear these people saying, oh, it's all poison, or, this and that. You're uninformed. There are no cattle in the United States, zero cattle that are beef cattle that live year round, in a feed yard. It just doesn't exist. In fact, about 85% of all cows in the United States right now that are beef cattle are out on pasture right now, right? The only part that's in a feed yard are the finishing animals for a small part of their life, usually 3 to 6 months or something like that. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. There's a lot of things we can do, but one of them should not be draconianly to say we're going to get rid of feed yards, because that's going to be a real problem in the short term and perhaps the long term. All right, guys, thanks a bunch.